Hello, humans. I am Scott Cannon, coming to you live on WLTH from the greatest city in all the world. Gary, Indiana. And this is the Counterpoint. Well, folks, since the world has been turning, human beings have been trying to figure out, why does it seem that good people die young, while bad people seem to live forever? And I myself have wondered this, but what does give me comfort is that eventually even the most evil of us have to eventually face judgment at the pearly gates, especially those of extraordinary wealth and power who've used said power to manipulate, oppress, and destroy the poor and most vulnerable among us. So when I heard late Friday that our former president George H.W. Bush had finally passed on, I didn't crack any bottles of champagne, but I did feel a smug sense of contentment that somebody who'd spent most of their adult life making life miserable for me and so many other people of color like me was finally going to face the same walk into the great beyond that Joseph Stalin, Ronald Reagan, Richard Nixon, Augusto Pinochet, Saddam Hussein, and many other of the 20th century monsters had to face. Late Friday, I scrolled through the different news channels covering his death. And for some reason, I don't know why, but for some reason, I halfway expected to hear a somewhat balanced assessment of the late president's life. But of course I did not. Even MSNBC, from what I'm told is supposed to be the left-wing channel, did nothing but heap effusive praise on a man who was a part of an administration that thought that the AIDS epidemic was not important enough to do anything about because in their minds it only affected gay men, drug addicts, and of course black people. The Associated Press deleted a tweet they issued on his death because it included the fact that he lost the 1992 election to Bill Clinton, but did not include his World War II service. Oh, give me a break. The Soviet Union probably didn't have a media so pacified. Even more depressing was people who call themselves part of the resistance to Donald Trump, heaping praise on a man who wrote the playbook for everything they claim they hate about Donald Trump. Just a few weeks ago, we heard many liberals claiming that Donald Trump's ad campaign for the midterm election was by far the most racist they had seen since George H.W. Bush's Willie Horton ad, designed to scare white people with images of a scary black man. Then these same liberals praised the very guy who was elected using the Willie Horton ad. Michelle Obama, who's on her worldwide Medea book tour, recently claimed that she would never forgive Donald Trump for his perpetuating of the birther theory, claiming that her husband was born in another country. But she actually left her book tour in Europe because she felt the need to join the Bush family, celebrate the late president's life. As you see, she's become very close to them over the years, as is illustrated in all the pictures of her hugging and kissing the two former Bush presidents. So I guess she can forgive the man who helped destroy millions of her people's lives as the head of the CIA and the Reagan administration that helped Nicaraguan drug cartels flood our inner cities with crack cocaine while sending millions of poor, desperate black men who touched the drugs they helped place in our communities in prisons forever. But God forbid you say something that could hurt her husband politically. But one great thing about political deaths like these is that it should be a reminder to all of us out there that politics is just a game to these people. They claim their opponent is dangerous and destroying America, and when the elections are through, they all go hang out and joke about how stupid the rest of us are for caring so much about who wins and loses these elections, because ultimately, they all work for the same people. Why shouldn't the Clintons and Obamas of the world mourn the death of a drug-pushing, racist war criminal who's responsible for much of the discord in our communities and in Latin America? They have the same friends, go to the same parties, and have kids who all go to the same exclusive schools and hang out with each other. So while the mainstream media can continue to talk about how great of a man George H.W. Bush was, I'll remember him as the guy who, along with Ronald Reagan, helped turn Gary, Indiana into the war zone I grew up in the 90s, with their neoliberal economic policies hurting the poor and working class, while at the same time helping to push drugs into our community. And there's no amount of propaganda from the mainstream corporate media that will brainwash me into believing any differently. I'm sorry that George Bush has children and grandchildren that will miss him. But for all of those poor people in the ghettos of America and the barrios of Latin America, they all had families who loved them too. And if you're not going to cry for them, then I suggest you save your tears in crying for a man who died rich beyond belief and free without scandal to his name. Okay, folks, you can chop it up with me on Twitter at The Chemist Lives. The Chemist is spelled with K, as I'm a product of the Gary, Indiana Community School System, and we can talk about politics, music, sports. You can tell me how terrible I am at my job. Or you can just listen to me every Monday from 6 to 8 on Issues and Answers with Jonathan Boose and the McGee Report, brought to you by the precocious hostess with the mostest, Jamelia McGee. I am Scott Cannon, and that was the Counterpoint on WLTH 1370 AM. God bless the working class, and God bless organized labor. And I'm out, humans.